Go, 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 go.
3, 2, 1, 4 tires.
Still there, inside.
What a jump! What a jump!
The track is wet. It's good.
Still there, clear.
3, 2, 1. Green flag, green flag.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Foreign Field Podcast post-Nashville edition. I'm your host, Dom Capilupo, joined as always by Steve Ray, Wes Riddle, and Sam Dooley. All right, Nashville's in the books. How we feeling about that? Ryan Blaney in the win column. Steve, how we feeling first race? Not at the track.
Yeah, I watched it on TV, and don't get me wrong, Prime broadcast, I've said this on Twitter a couple times, the Prime broadcast is awesome. Love that, but it just wasn't the same feeling. I felt a piece of sadness. I was like, I feel like we should be at the track, especially now having to go through all of this debacle that we've had to go through tonight of trying to find something to record this on. It just is way easier at the track, but all of that aside, great win for Ryan Blaney. This is how he's been performing all year. 5 DNFs has kind of hindered him, but this is the level that we expect to see out of Ryan Blaney.
Yeah, and I mean, Wes, you're known more as the Ryan Blaney guy on the podcast, so I'm sure that had to feel pretty good to see.
Well, it did. It was just finally kind of the validation the team needed, right? The 5 DNF Steve just mentioned, right? He had one of the fastest, if not the fastest car in a few of those. So obviously we weren't really able to see what the capability and performance would be had the race played out normal for him without external factors kind of taking him out of contention. So it was a very good win, very impressive too, the way he was able to do it. He looked, as always, incredible in the long run. But now first win of the season, trying to get back to form. You know, he said he wants to hunt multiple wins this season, or at least in the regular season before the playoffs even start. So he's got some good tracks coming up. Michigan, he's already won at. Iowa's not too far around the corner. So it should be a good season for Ryan Blaney. I think now we're going to see a little bit of momentum go in his favor in the number 12 team.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was really impressed by Blaney's performance. He was obviously the fastest car, and I was more impressed by his team finally getting it done, putting all the pieces together, because that's something we talked about previously on the pod, was that their team, they were just missing one or two things. And like I had said, Penske's used to having slow starts, and right about now is when you're used to them kicking it in, and hey, this is when they start running towards the front. And they showed that the 12 and the 22 was up in the top 10, top 5 competing for most of the race as well. So it's about time that they put together a full team performance.
Yeah, it's actually good to hear your voice again, Sam, on the podcast. It's been a couple weeks. You were the lone man out. You didn't make it out to Charlotte, but it's good to have you back on. I know.
Yeah, it's great to be back. It's been a while. I think I was sick for a week before, and then y'all went off to Charlotte and had all your fun without me. But it's good to be back with you guys talking about NASCAR. And it was honestly a pretty fun race. I've been glad with the Prime coverage, because I unlike you two have now watched 2 Prime races. And I've liked the Prime coverage so far. It's been great. My favorite thing is probably the post-race coverage. We get extensive interviews and everything, which is awesome, because like an hour afterwards, they're still talking to people. They're still talking about the race, something that NASCAR fans have been begging for. So yeah, I'm glad to be back with you guys and talking some NASCAR.
Yeah, it is nice not having to go right to Twitter after the race and going to like Matt Weaver or Gluck or Bianchi or Pockris to see what the drivers are saying after the race, when we have a whole, hour at least of coverage after the race, which is really nice. It kind of gives that NASCAR victory lane feeling back from the Speed Channel days, and it's pretty cool to see if the step they need to take now is take that stage outside the track and take it out to where the fan zone is, so the fans in the grandstands could go out into the fan zone after the race and enjoy that stage right there and see the drivers come on and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, one step at a time here with Prime. They're doing a great job. I will say, if that race was broadcasted by Fox, that race would have been abysmal. I think. I think having the Prime coverage just kind of gave that race from bad to all right. Because if Fox is broadcasting that race, there's no passion in the booth. There's just no excitement. And I mean, the only real exciting part of that race, honestly, was the battle between Hamlin, Byron, and Blaney at the end of stage two, which really, I think, ultimately sprung Ryan Blaney into position to really kind of take care of that race and went on to win it. But I'm going to say it, the race wasn't good. The racing itself wasn't good. I think it was better last year, and especially those last like 50 laps, absolutely brutal.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree. I think what saved the race was the Prime broadcast. I fully agree. If it was on Fox, it would be abysmal. Just like you put it, I would say if I had to put this on like a 1 to 10 scale, this would sit right in the middle of the five. It wasn't a barn burner. It was just kind of there's my dog. If you can hear him, I apologize. It's just the epitome of average. It just the restarts were about the only thing that were semi exciting for a few laps, and then it just once it got strung out, then it was just a typical concrete race in Nashville. So I just put it as like a regular average, give it a 5 out of 10. Nothing really that I'm going to write home about, but definitely not the worst race that we've seen all year.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I feel like we expect every race to have to be a barn burner. We're not always going to get that. Nashville poses a lot different track characteristics from a lot of the other tracks that we have on the schedule, and it's very different from some of the other mile and a halves. So I feel like even a 5 out of 10, even though it wasn't, the most exciting race in the world, it's not, the end of the world, right? It's just a solid racing product. Last year definitely was better. This year could have saw a little bit more, but I don't think we can get a lot worse with this track, if that makes sense. I feel like what we saw is about what it's always going to be, no matter how many times we come back to this track at the bottom, right? So if it was fair, I think you all nailed it on the head. It wasn't crazy exciting, but at the same time, just a solid kind of typical race with um, long green flag runs there at the end. Stage two was obviously a mess. We might talk about that for a minute. Stage one was long as well, but just average at the end of the day.
I want to pose the question just since we're on the topic of the track. What did you guys think of the Xfinity race? Because I thought actually being able to get up, to somebody's left rear and move them. We saw that between Creed and Zillage. I thought the Xfinity cars, of course, I'm always going to be on the side of Xfinity puts on the best racing of the weekend, but I think that Nashville fits the Xfinity cars so much better. So again, it's going back to the same broken record that we're hitting, that it's a next gen thing. I thought the race on Saturday was great, and I think again, like almost every other track, if the next gen car was more like the Xfinity car, we'd be saying that this race would be a lot better than what it actually was.
Yeah, it's the same idea of you got to be racing the car for it to be a good racing product. And I agree with Wes too that it wasn't bad, right? It wasn't a terrible race, but it kind of set. I think it set a good floor. That's what Wes was alluding to. Like it set a good floor for what a Nashville race can be, right? Because like this, I'm assuming it doesn't get much worse than this, and this was still a pretty good race. It was still like having a mid race is like the worst race that you've had. That's not bad, but it is still a next gen car thing where personally I think they drive too well, and the fact that there was little to no tire wear, that is kind of what killed it. I mean, we can beat the dead horse all we want, but I mean, more horsepower and more tire wear is what's gonna solve it. And so, I mean, absent of that, it wasn't bad. I think Saturday was a lot better of a product though. It looked better. Like the eye test, it looked better on Saturday.
I mean, your main difference between Xfinity and Cup right now is in Xfinity, being in second place isn't a detriment. You can control what that leader's car does when you get close to it. And on Sundays, First place, all he's got to do is get that ball. He's just got to line his car up right in front of yours, and that's it. I mean, there was no reason Denny Hamlin should have been able to hold off Ryan Blaney for as long as he did. Blaney's car was so much better than Hamlin's after about 30 to 40 laps, and Denny Hamlin was able to just go up the track with him, just kind of move the car down if he needed to. And I mean, it got to the point where in the broadcast they're praising Denny Hamlin for his aero blocking. At what point in NASCAR Cup Series history have we had guys just like looking in their mirror and mirror driving at a mile and a half before the next gen car?
Yeah, it's. I mean, the. I mean the that's just the car in general. Like the arrow, it nothing should be that arrow dependent ever. Like my biggest thing was there's no way that Denny Hamlin shouldn't have at least brought a little bit of fight to the 12 car. But on that last run, whenever he stayed out longer, so he had fresher tires,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he had what, like 10 lap fresher tires or something, and he couldn't even run down Hocevar in second.
No.
Like he got to him, I was watching the ticker and he got to half a second and it stayed at half a second for the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the race because of the air that you were talking about and how these cars can't race up next to each other or even really that close to each other. And that's with a car that has 10, 15, whatever lap fresher tires because he tried to work strategy. So it screws up everything when you can't race really.
I mean, you saw in the Xfinity race at Charlotte, Justin Allgaier stayed out, which in turn, which we found out since our last episode, that was a Justin Allgaier decision. It wasn't the crew chief's decision. It was Justin Allgaier doing it all to himself. It wasn't. You can't blame the 7 team there, Steve. That's all on
No,
the driver.
I really wish that I hadn't learned that was what happened. That just made me even more upset from the Charlotte race. I don't know how I'm still dumbfounded by that decision. But whatever, we're after Nashville, and he went on and just put on a clinic and just completely kicked ass in the Mayo Missile on Saturday night, and put on a hell of a race.
Yeah, I mean,
The Mayo Missile.
Yeah,
I don't
hey,
think I don't think I've heard the Mayo Missile
Oh, you
before.
haven't heard that?
Good. I
Yeah,
haven't heard that. That's the first time.
that's
I
what they
love
call
that.
the Hellman's car. They call
we
it the
got
Mayo Missile.
I love
when
that.
we were at Jerem Van Day, we got Hellman's mayonnaise shirts, koozies.
Yummy.
But yeah, Blaney was on what over 100 lap old left side tires, and
It meant
he was
nothing.
still the fastest car on the track. I mean,
I mean,
it's
something can be said to his car being that fast too, but also, like, you're on 100 lap old left side. Like the left side just didn't wear at all.
like you probably could have went in there and changed 2 tires, right sides every time all night, and just
Entire race, it
been
probably would have
fine.
lasted. Honestly, the way that it looked, because I mean, the lap time drop off wasn't that much. Like they dropped off what, a couple tenths?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
it's
I
a
mean,
couple tenths
Like
at the most.
it wasn't even a full second that they were dropping off. I mean, that's why the fresh tires at the end for Hamlin meant nothing.
Yeah, you had guys pitting around lap 40 in the first stage, and Blaney stayed out till roughly lap 70. And the difference between Blaney staying out longer than the other guys was maybe a tenth and a half, like
yeah.
marginal.
Yeah, and that basically set up Blaney to get up front because he then took the opportunity to take 2 tires since he pitted with like 20 to go in the first stage, and that kind of got the track position for good, and he never relinquished it after that. Just like Sam said at the beginning of the episode, it was just that 12 team putting the whole race together. You had to think there were some nervous times there going to that last green flag pit stop, but luckily by the time they pit Hamlin and Blaney had already built up about a 3 second lead, so there was a little wiggle room for a little mistake here and there. Had Hamlin been right, with them, I'd say it'd be advantage Denny Hamlin with his pit crew. But Blaney was able, his car was just so good on the super long run. There was no doubt the best car won that race, and really just it's kind of refreshing to see the best car win and not have this caution with 2 to go and then set up a 5 overtimes and like we did last year. And
That was great. I don't think I've ever prayed at a racetrack before. And that last overtime, I was sitting next to Dom. He can attest to that.
yeah,
I was just sitting there saying prayers in my seat, like, please, just like 3 more drops of fuel and get Joey across the line. But yeah, it was good. I wanted to give Hocevar props too and his team really, because going into that last green flag pit stop, I was thinking like, oh, it's Spire, how's the crew gonna perform under this pressure? They're up front. Like I was thinking that was what was gonna take him out of contention because he was in fifth or something going into that last set of green flag pit stops, and his crew actually jumped him up to second, where he was able to hold on to it. So like I wanted to give Hocevar and that 77 team props because he drove the wheels off of that thing, and they gave him the opportunity there at the end, which I was actually shocked about.
but what about him getting in the Stenhouse? I
The
mean,
more replays I look at that, actually, I had a different view of it yesterday, because we're recording this on Monday night. I had a different view of it whenever I saw it live. But the more I watched the onboard, the 77 pulled out and made his intentions known early. Like he was like, I'm going for this inside. Now, it was early enough in the race, probably should have hit the brakes a little bit, gave him a break, but he just didn't give him a break, right? Because the 47 came down across his nose. So, I mean, it all depends on what you look at it. And like, I didn't really like Hocevar's response at the end, where he was kind of like, "Oh, I haven't seen a replay." Like you've had 200 laps to think about what you're gonna say, and oh, I haven't seen a replay. It's probably not the right thing to say. It's like, oh, I probably could have cut him a break. We'll talk about it. I'm going, or just own up to it and be like, yeah, I'm going for that spot. Like I'm trying to get that spot. I don't want that 47 to get in my way. Um, I didn't like his response, but honestly, it looked like if that move was made at the end of the race, there's no problem with it. But it was just the beginning of the race. It was a little early, and it's one of those things where we know Hocevar isn't going to give anything. So I'm not surprised by it. But yeah, it looked like the more replays I've looked, it looked less like a just taking out and more like he just didn't give him a break when he should have.
And I feel like we've seen a lot of the veteran drivers too, right? Talk about how a lot of these younger talents that are coming into the sport, right? They think and just kind of assume, no matter how far they are back, if they can stick their nose down to the inside entering a corner, then they are guaranteed the spot, right? And the driver has to concede the position. But sticking your nose in there, I know Hocevar was a little closer than some of the times we've seen it, but you can't just stick your nose in the corner, not even beside the driver, and just assume that the driver on the outside is going to get the position. It comes down to a respect battle, just trying to manage yourself. And I think at that point of the race, just like you mentioned, Sam, it's too early. There's not a reason to make that move. You can be a lot more patient. There's not really a need for that spot. But obviously at the end of the day, right, it is important. I mean, Hocevar ended up finishing second, right? What if he didn't spend Stenhouse and didn't throw the caution? He had a long green flag run, was able to run down past a few more guys on the track. How much different would the race have played out, right? You never know. But I feel like, again, at the end of the day, racing incident, still could have been a little bit more patient there. And then again, sticking your nose in that far back, you really shouldn't be doing it. I mean, you just it comes down to just showing respect on the racetrack.
Yeah, I fully agree with you guys, and I think had it been anybody other than Hocevar, this probably wouldn't be as big of a deal. But his reputation on the track, I'm not saying that what he's doing is wrong, because like you can't say that NASCAR drivers need personality, but then hate the way that Hocevar is acting or driving. I think his personality is something that NASCAR needs, but with that being said, there's a reputation that's going to follow you, and that every little thing that Hocevar is going to do, what we've seen in the past, what we saw at Nashville, and what's going to happen in the future, is going to follow him. And eventually, there's going to be a day where somebody is going to either knock his teeth in or put him up in the wall. And at that point, like there's nothing that he can do about it, or there's nothing that he should do about it because of all the previous incidents that he's had, the one that he had Sunday night, and then any going forward. Like this is just to be, he should know that this is just going to be expected. And I think if it was anybody else that had gotten into the back of Ricky, I don't think we'd be talking about this. But because it was Hocevar, because of his past antics, this is why this continues to drag on. So, like I said, I think his personality is great for the sport. He's very aggressive, but also very young. And we see this out of a lot of drivers. Kyle Busch is a prime example of it, is that Kyle Busch in his younger years was just wild and uncontrolled, had a lot of speed, but really had to be honed in, really had to be dialed back at times. And I think Hocevar just doesn't have the wins to show for it, but it has a lot of the same antics with it. So I think he'll definitely figure it out, whether that's him learning or somebody else teaching him a lesson. He's going to figure it out. But great speed from the 77, really for the past few weeks. We saw it at the Coke 600. He was good for the first 3 stages, and then the start of stage 4 blew up. So really none of his doing, but they'll get it figured out. I'm sure they will.
And it's also not to be overlooked in the same breath that he was a lot faster than the 47. Like it was obvious later on once he got to the front and he had that speed, he was faster than the 47. So I'm thinking if that's like you were saying, if it was someone else, if that's Kyle Larson that's doing that, oh, the 47 was in his way. Get him out of the way. Like the 47's blocking this car that's obviously faster, but because it was the 77, and I think Spire doesn't have that reputation yet as being a in the front type of team, and along with his reputation of him being a very aggressive driver. But yeah, if the roles were reversed, like if it was like Kyle Larson, it's just Kyle Larson going for a spot, and he's just faster, right? But I'd rather have to hone someone in. I'd rather have to pull that in than try and get someone to be more aggressive, right? Because it's been done either way, and there's great drivers on both sides of it where you've had to pull a little more aggression out or take a little bit back. I think it's more often that when you have to take them back, that you can kind of like, hey, still be that aggressive, but be that aggressive with 20 to go. Don't be that aggressive 20 laps into the race.
And I heard Jordan Bianchi, I think it was Bianchi. He said, "Listen, there's pretty similar how Ross Chastain drove a couple years ago and Hocevar is right now. The difference is Ross was battling for wins when he was stepping over the line and making contact and being over aggressive. It was for the win. Here, Hocevar's wrecking Stenhouse for 25th. I mean, why make enemies with guys in the back so early in the race? That's the issue. When Ross was getting into his problems, it was, the end of these races, Kyle Larson and him were battling on a late race restart. I mean, him and Hamlin, that was pretty early in a race. And that's another thing. When Hocevar like Steve said, when Hocevar gets it back to him, he just got to take it. Like Ross did. Ross understood when Hamlin got his payback on Ross. Ross was like, I deserved it. But I mean, Hocevar with his track record, who knows if he gets run up to the wall, he might just right hook the guy, which he's done multiple times before. So I mean, he doesn't know. He knows how to dish it out, but he doesn't know how to take it. And until he does take it like a man, I wouldn't expect to see something different.
I'm not making any comparisons here or saying that Hocevar is going to be a 7-time champion. I just got to say it's very convenient that the Earnhardt documentary came out at the same time that we're talking about this. And it's very, very similar shades to early Dale.
And Dale Earnhardt Jr. was asked who is similar to his father driving these days, and the first person he mentioned was Carson Hocevar. Obviously not the same personality, but
I wonder how much he got paid.
Comparison. Prime. That's a lot.
That's Bezos money there.
Oh boy. We're looking at, I don't know how many figures. I'm not going to count.
All right, now I gotta pick a battle here with the Blaney fans. I gotta pick a battle with the Blaney fans here.
Hey, come on, man. They just got the toaster out of the bath. Are you gonna cut them some slack?
No, I'm over the Blaney fans crying like Ryan Blaney hasn't won in 10 years. Not like he hasn't won a championship a year and a half ago. Didn't finish the second in the championship last year. You see these guys, I mean, you look down the comment sections, it's like finally, like he isn't the highest run, like he isn't top 10 in points this year. He ain't leading a million laps. Yeah, he should have won a couple more races this year, but let's not act like he's Brad Keselowski in 32nd in points. And I just don't. You think Blaine that was Blaney's first ever win, and he lost like 74 after leading the most laps.
I'll play a little devil's advocate here for the Blaney fans. You get repeatedly punched in the gut every week for like a good stretch like he has. I would be excited too, because it's looked like he was going to win a lot of races. And I think the finalies are more like finally it didn't get taken from me in the last 50 laps of a race, and less of like finally it's been a long time. I think it's just you've been repeatedly punched in the mouth over and over again. Like, yes, we're finally gonna win one, and then it's like, no, actually the engine blew. Fuck. So I'll play a little bit on there. I understand some of the frustrations and some of the excitement for the Blaney fans.
Yeah, I think where some of that's coming from is that this is only his first win of the year. We could legitimately be sitting here, had a couple things gone differently, and this could easily be Blaney's fourth or fifth win this year. And I think that's where a lot of those comments are coming from, is that just like you said, Sam, is that finally an engine didn't blow up. We didn't get caught in a wreck. We didn't have a tire go down. Just finally, I think it was less, I interpret it less of finally we got a win, and just finally everything went right and nothing blew up. Nothing came apart. We didn't dick ourselves on pit road. Um, and so I think that's just where a lot of those are coming from, is that, we should realistically be talking about Blaney being, a 4 or 5 time winner this year. And it's hard to believe that this is only the first win this year. But truth be told, first wins out of the bag, I look for many more to come from Blaney for the rest of the year.
Like I see a post. I took some screenshots of posts, and
We're getting the screenshots.
we got all the pain, all the anger finally pays off. We're winners, boys. Like he hasn't, like he didn't win multiple races last year, didn't finish second in the championship, didn't win the championship 2 years ago. We have suffered long enough. Suffered? What? Suffered what? I don't understand it.
Well, before we move on, I wanted to mention one more thing about the race, at least. Bubba Wallace finally broke his streak of DNFs and misfortune and 30th place finishes. He got sixth. He got a top 10. I was excited about that as well. So props to Bubba. And then Eric Jones, P7.
Now those are two fan bases that could go berserk
Finally
on
yeah.
Twitter when they win.
Yeah. I was talking to my neighbor because I was wearing my Eric Jones shirt on Sunday, and of course Eric was running top 5 at that point, and he was wondering why I was so happy because Eric wasn't leading. And I was like, you don't get this. Like, this is a 25th place team most weeks that's running in the top 5. Like, this never happens. So it was, honestly, when we saw this, Eric got a top 5 at Texas. He finished 13th at Charlotte, finished 7th at Nashville. We've seen speed out of the 42 car, so it's not just one or the other. John Hunter was running he was legitimately running second at Charlotte. So there are things that are starting to turn around, at least for the 1.5-mile package for Legacy. Great solid night. They lost a couple positions just because they had to take some extra fuel on their last stop. So, hands down, just a complete race for the 43 team last night. And it is awesome to see because that is, you talk about pain and suffering. That is pain and suffering, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that was Nashville. So we're still a little on the shorter side this week. Not usually this short, but we have little technical difficulties tonight. But we'll be back. We're in a little time crunch tonight. So cutting Nashville a little short. We'll get more into Michigan next week. But we do got to get our race picks in. And the new kid on the block, Anthony, is 2 for 2 in picking the race. Not even just beating the four of us. He picking the race winner. These first 2 weeks picking. Unbelievable.
Couldn't believe it.
Starting to think that maybe he is in like the DeLorean going back to the future or something like that.
He's got Biff's book that he was placing bets
Yeah,
in
right.
and Back to the Future.
And so now the updated count is Steve's still leading with 4 wins. Then the rest of us here with 3 wins, I believe. And then Anthony's got 2 already. So he wins again. We already get tied. three races into his tenure here. Let's see what is our order this week.
We're going to start with Wes, thanks to a dismal Chase Briscoe performance yet again.
From the poll.
I mean, just a heartbreaker. Just heartbreaker. Come on, Chase. What are we doing? I didn't really get a chance to look into picks too much, but I know one guy that I think did pretty good last Michigan race. Also did pretty good last week, or not last week, but at Nashville, and also the week before at Charlotte. And we just talked about him for a few minutes on the podcast. I'm going to take Carson Hocevar. I think he keeps going on the 1.5 miles. It's going to be hard to deny him being up front, so I think he's going to have a good shot this week.
Yeah, not a bad pick there. I think takes us to Steve.
Yeah. I just want to say real quick, I'm not going to take much time. I am hitting the panic button on Chase Elliott and the 9 team. I thought this was going to be the week that they were going to get over mediocrity, and they just fell right into it again. So full-blown panic mode for the 9 team. They're going to be a first-round exit if they're lucky even to make it to the playoffs. So with that being said, we're going to switch over to the manufacturer that's won 9 of the last 10 at Michigan. That's going to be a Ford team. I'm actually going to take not a Penske car. I'm actually going to go the Roush route, and a guy that won at Michigan a couple years ago. I'm going to take Chris Buescher in the 17 team.
That's a good pick right there. I was thinking about him. One guy I got to get into the win column. I can't be letting Anthony tie me already. So I'm gonna go tie Steve this week, and I'm gonna take William Byron. He finished second there last year. He's gonna win this. He's gonna win it this year.
It's a good pick. I'm kind of leaning towards. What am I leaning towards here? I'm gonna lean towards Ford as well. I'm going with the Ford camp. I liked the stat that Steve brought up. Michigan's a big Ford place. And I'm gonna go with Josh Berry to win this week. He's been good all year. I think that 21 car finished 14th with Harrison Burton driving it last year. So if Harrison Burton can get you a 14th, I think that Josh Berry can get you a win. So lock it in. I'm going with Josh Berry.
And then I think Wes, you got Anthony's pick here.
I do have Anthony's pick. So Steve, you picked. Tell me one
Chris
more time.
Buescher.
You picked Buescher. Okay, Buescher was one of Anthony's considerations, but Anthony's top pick is going to shock the world, I think, here. Had a really good run there at Charlotte. I guess is only top 10 of the season. That's old bad Brad Keselowski. He's going to stick in the Ford camp, and we'll see how old bad Brad does this week. Can he make it in the top 30 in points?
You heard it here first on the Foreign Fuel podcast. Brad is winning Michigan.
Oh my gosh,
man! I wish I had him.
Track.
I gave Brad a thought. I've already used him now. When the hell did I use Brad? Oh, yeah.
We all need to join hands as we did in Charlotte. We did have a moment in Charlotte for bad Brad Keselowski. Please
sing his praises.
This man does not deserve the pain, the suffering. We need him to have a good run and get to victory lane. So let's go number 6. I think he's all our picks in our hearts, and he should be for everybody this week.
Just as Brad gets a top 5 in the Coke 600, I don't even think he was shown once on the Prime broadcast this past week. I think he even finished 23rd or 22nd, somewhere in the 20s again. Poor
There you
Brad.
go. Toaster.
Yeah, if someone needs a toaster, or somebody's going to be going, finally, it's got to be Brad fans too. They're on that list.
There you go.
Well, those are our picks. If Brad actually wins this week, Anthony is going to be making a lot of money because people are going to be hitting him up for the bets. So
Yeah, there's one guy on our Twitter already that said that he was dropping $50 on whoever Anthony was picking. So
I hope, man, he's going to be a payday if he puts 50 on Brad.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are on Brad, but I can imagine $50 to win probably $1 million. So,
all right. Well, I'm not. I at the end of last episode, I made it really sound like that was our last episode. The podcast was done, and I think that was just the sentimentalness in me, just like being upset that our Charlotte trip was done. But no fear here. Foreign Fuel we're just starting up. We're not packing it up. We're make sure you follow us on all forms of social media now. We have the TikTok up and running. We got Facebook, we got Instagram, obviously Twitter, which I'm sure you're following already, but all of it is just Foreign Fuel Podcast. You search that up, you'll find us no problem. And with that, for Sam, Wes, Steve, I'm Dom, and I'll see you guys next week. This isn't it. Next week on the Foreign Field Podcast.